דוקטורט כאחד מהפלוס 60 דוקטורנטיות של גרונית. כאשר נירית חזרה ארצה, אנחנו שיתפנו פעולה, זכות גדול היה לי. תחום ההתמחות שלה זה באמת הכל שקשור לחלק החברתי, הן מבחינת חברתית, הן בני גיל, בתוך משפחה, עם עצמו, והמפעל החיים של פרופסור נירית באומינגר-צביאלי הקים בתוך בר אילן, אבל בעיקר באמת בתוך משרד החינוך, של סטודנטים שעברו דרכם ואחר כך עובדים עם משפחות בתוך בתי ספר, והכל באמת הם זכות לא רק לה ולא רק לסטודנטים, אלא לנו ולאנשים עם אוטיזם ומשפחותיהם בכל הארץ. תודה.
Sorry. I'm really excited to stand here and to talk, to give a talk with you, Connie, in Israel. It's a dream come true. I'm really thankful for you, Corey and Judah, to bring this wonderful and amazing lady for 2.5 days to Israel to hear some of her work. It was only a tiny bit of an important one, but she is really, I think, one of the most active laboratory in the world today. So we were really privileged, and I'm privileged to close this wonderful day. So I will be talking about peers, and I titled the talk on social communication growth via peer interaction. What I'm mostly doing, I think, for the last 20 years since I came back to Israel from UCLA, trying to understand peers, trying to develop evidence-based protocols, looking at friendship, as Anitt said, and other things. So I will be presenting to you today two very recent projects, intervention projects, which just got recently finished in my laboratory. And both of them are also were recently published, which is really, really nice. So the first one is a preschool peer social intervention. We call it a PPC, and I will be talking about this first. And then we have another intervention protocol, which we try to help minimally verbal children with ASD who were school age to interact more spontaneously with their peers, so we call it the SMC. And I will try to conclude this talk by providing some of our idea of how the model of integrating peers or increasing or facilitating peer interaction, and how the model should look like. So the first study that I want to start to present is the preschool peer social intervention, which is actually based on 3 intervention protocols, and I don't have the pictures of the PhD students that developed it, but they are here, so stand up. Sagit, Ophira, and Galit, and each of them developed one of the protocols, and we have an holistic intervention because we included these 3 protocols together as a holistic protocol. And this paper just got accepted, I think, 2 or 3 days ago in the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders. You can go to the paper if you're interested. So what did we want to do in this study? We wanted to examine the efficacy of the intervention that we developed. And actually we thought that in terms of increasing peer interaction, we would like to focus on social play, on social interaction, and on social conversation, which are really the 3 main blocks of, or they are the core capabilities that children need in order to interact more effectively with their peers. So the study included 4 groups. We had 3 intervention groups and 1 group that did not receive treatment. It was a waitlist control group, and it was randomly divided between all these 4 groups. And we had some aims in our mind. We wanted to see pre-post improvement. We also wanted to compare the group on time 2, the intervention in between themselves, and also compare it to the waitlist control group. And also we were interested in some generalization because we gave reports to the teacher of the preschool to report about the children's social conversation and social play within the preschool environment. So we saw it as some kind of a generalization. We also were interested in seeing if we teach children social play, if we will see some improvement in social conversation or in social interaction. So we really wanted to focus on each of the area, but wanted also to see the influence of one area on the other area. So we had some several levels that we were interested in. We had 4 groups, as I said. They were all high-functioning preschoolers. You can see by their IQ and verbal and all, they were really high-functioning. This is the PPC. It's a manualized protocol, and the intervention principles, it was a manualized curriculum. We implemented it within the preschools. Always the intervention that I developed, I'm trying to implement them within the school system. It's hard, it's heartbreaking sometimes, but we did it. It took us 4 years or something like that. But we were able to get into 23 preschools across Israel and implement the intervention. It was supervised by the research team every 2nd week, but it was led by a trained on-site preschool therapist. We had 45-minute sessions 3 times a week, and we had an individual meeting, and 2 of the other meetings were group meetings. In each of the groups, we always have 2 typically developing children within the group, and between 1 to 2 children on the spectrum. It was an ecological intervention. It was within child's educational setting, developmental. As we'll see in a minute, we developed our aims developmentally. And CBT, even though we got some comment from one of the reviewers that children in preschool cannot follow CBT, but we don't say that we did CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. We just used some of the principles of CBT and we integrated them into our intervention. The emphasis was on peer interaction and the adult-mediated intervention. We had a structured and manualized program and sessions. The activities were chosen based on the children's chronological age. And the sessions combined always lesson and learning and practicing. Not exactly in this order. Sometimes they could practice and then we helped them to understand the concept that they were doing, but it was always learning and practicing. We used several techniques such as problem solving, concept clarification, role play and role play, and we used a lot of visual stimuli, illustrations and photos and short video clips, and a lot of fun activities because we thought that no matter what they learn, they have to have fun. So we were trying to have some activities that the children would like to take part in. So these are the 3 intervention content in the conversation group, which was developed by Dr. Ofira and Shlomo. We were focusing on the stages of conversation and on 3 types of conversation: interpersonal conversation, argumentative conversation, and activity talk. So we had the children, while they were doing some social activities, we helped to develop their peer talk. In the interaction group, we were trying to teach the children how to initiate and respond and maintain an interaction. And also we were focusing on pro-social and social behaviors and also on conflict resolution. In the play group, social play and social pretend play, which was developed by Dr. Sabit Hoshman and the interaction by Dr. Eitan, We followed Cowley House developmental stages of social play and social pretend play, which basically have 5 levels, and we wanted to increase the complexity of the child's play, the quality and the complexity of the child's play. These are some examples, and the first one is from the social play intervention. Here you are looking at the interactive complementary play stage, and also in this stage we are looking at the universal and the definition. So we always provide them with a definition or with a rule, something that will help you to understand what does it mean to have role reversal. So, and we could use this definition to summarize the activity or just to begin, and then the activity will be following. So when playing together, each child can play a different role in the game, and then they can switch roles, and you can see that we have some pictures here for run and chase and for hide and seek, and each time they're replacing roles. And we were showing them the pictures and we were talking about it, and then in the group activities we will be practicing role reversal in various social games. For the social interaction group, you can see here the concept of pro-social and compromise that we were trying to teach them, and here you can see a series of pictures. And in the first one, they are arguing about the bicycle, and then they are deciding to take turn, and they are very happy because, you know, they can take turn and happily solve this conflict. So we were trying to explain is what does it mean to compromise, how do we compromise, and within the group activities, we will be focusing about activities that they have to compromise, and we teach them strategies to compromise, such as voting or just giving up, which is not good, or taking turns, as you can see in this picture. This is from the social conversation, and here you can see the activity talk. So the children are looking at a picture, the children are doing a construction game together, and we will encourage them to talk about what can we talk when we are building blocks or things like that to develop their talk around the activity. We had a lot of assessment measures, and some of them were observations, some of them were questionnaires. For our observation, we looked at the free play situation, and we coded it by the hierarchical peer play scale. So we looked at the children playing together in a free play situation, and we coded their play behavior from 1 to 5. 5 will be the most complex play behavior that they show, and 1 will be parallel, even non-parallel, aware, for example, in the social play. We also had an observation on their conversation between themselves within the group, and this lasted 25 minutes, and we coded it by the pragmatic rating scale, which is a scale that codes pragmatic deficit, and also we used the conversation quality scale, which was a general scale. It was composed out of we wrote every utterance that the child said, and we were trying to code if one of these 5 components were in this utterance. So it was if the child was attentive, if he was initiating, if he was responding, preserving, or expanded the conversation. We had 2 questionnaires that we gave the therapist, and we did not receive this as a generalization, but one of them was a social play questionnaire, the other one was social conversation questionnaire, and we also gave questionnaires to the educator who did not provide the intervention and who could see the child during various activities within the preschool. So we gave them to fill the violin and also the social play questionnaire and the social conversation questionnaire. And what did we find? From our hierarchical peer play scale, this is the social play, and you can see the levels from 1 to 4, starting at משחק מקביל, at parallel play, ending in reciprocal play. And the complexity goes on while the child is doing more active and integrative activities with his peer. And here what we found was that the play group showed significant difference from time 1 to time 2, and also the interaction group showed significant, tend to significant difference from time 1 to time 2. This was the social pretend play, again 5 levels, from solitary play up to complex social pretend play, which is a play that involves meta-communication, and the children are composing narratives, so we coded each of the child's level of complexity of play. So on the social pretend play, only the play group improved from time 1 to time 2. You can also see the differences in time 2 between the intervention group and the control group. Just the meaning of the difference, so if you can see about the social play, so the social group increased they started at around a mean of 3, which is the beginning of simple social play. They ended at a mean of 3.75, and the range was up to 4.11, which means that they started a little low than simple social play, and they ended reaching level 4. And also in social pretend play, they showed a nice improvement. On the pragmatic, this is important to understand that lower score at time 2 are better because it coded deficit. So here we also find nice results for the conversation and interaction group on the pragmatic scale. On the prosodic, the control group really regressed. And on the paralinguistic, we can see improvement in the conversation group, but regression on the control group. Actually, it was a pretty consistent finding. The control group did not improve in any of our measures, and if something happened to them, they regressed. They got worse score at time 2 than in time 1. This is the conversation quality, and this is really interesting. Here on the quality of the conversation, I'm just reminding, we coded attention and responsiveness and preservation of the interaction. So here only the conversation group, which really was getting an intervention that was focused on it, showed nice improvement from time 1 to time 2. This is the social play assessed by the educator, and we considered it as a generalization because the educator was not part of the intervention. And we had 5 levels of play to begin with, and then we combined them into 3 levels, which was a very basic, intermediate, and a very complex play level. And as you can see by the educator report, on the complementary and reciprocal play, which is the most complex level of social play, all 3 intervention groups improved from time 1 to time 2. And also for the social pretend play, the results reported by the educator are even better, because also on the intermediate level and on the most complex level, the educator showed improvement in the children's behavior within the preschool, not in the intervention group. This is the social conversation questionnaire assessed by the therapist. And also here you can see improvement. How much time do we have? Because I might not. Corey? כמה זמן יש לי?
יותר מחצי שעה.
בסדר. So I have time. So on the social conversation, this is an assessment by the therapist. It's not a generalization. The therapist was one that really implemented the intervention. However, it's nice to see that he also saw improvement in the children, in the speaker category, and also in the listener, and in the quality of the peer talk only for the conversation group. And what we see consistently is that when we are coding quality of conversation, then if we really were teaching conversation, this group really increased the quality of conversation. The other groups could increase other peer talk capabilities, but the improvement was very unique to the conversation group. This is the same scale reported by the educator, and also you can see that the conversation group did very well on all these 3 parameters, and also the play group increased their listener skills. So the play group that we didn't teach them conversation also did better listening. This is the Vineland. It is reported by the educator. You can see nice improvement on the adaptive domain. We perceive this also as a generalization because we did not teach adaptive. We teach them social interaction. So the play group and the interaction group showed really nice improvement from time 1 to time 2. And by the therapist, only the play group significantly improved from time 1 to time 2. This is the subscale of the violent socialization, and you can see that we found some improvement on the socialization and on the social play, as reported by the therapist and by the educator, but only for the play group, from time 1 to time 2. This is a pretty overwhelming slide. I just wanted to direct your attention to some of the things that you can see here. So if you look at the control group, I didn't took my okay. So if you look at the control, so you can see only NS, or if you can see something, it's a minus. NS means non-significant. So very consistently in the control group, after 6 months of intervention, after 6 months of time, because they did not get any intervention, nothing happened. And if something happened, they did worse. And this is, I think, a pretty strong finding, because if we want to intervene directly to increase social interaction, we probably not get it out of nowhere. And also you can get some impression about the improvement in each of the different groups and on each of the different variables. So there are some generalization from one area of intervention to another, and maybe this slide will be more friendly. So we think that overall children in each intervention group showed improvement over time. Intertrained peer engagement remained. Children in the control group did not progress over time, and in some measures even regressed. Children saw some generalization from one peer engagement domain to another. This was really important for us to see. Intervention, the interaction group, for example, improved on pragmatic skills. The play group improved on conversation, on speaker and listener, according to the therapist report. And moreover, children also showed some generalization to untrained domains, to domains that we didn't teach them. The play group improved violent, adaptive scores according both to the therapist and the educator. Interaction showed better adaptive skills according to the therapist. And overall, all intervention groups showed increased play complexity, as reported by the educator, which is really, I think, a nice finding. So overall, the results are encouraging, and the PIPSI increased peer engagement in preschoolers with ASD. But there are many other things to consider. And one thing is that we could not collect data on the typical peers that participated in our social groups. We were not allowed by the Ministry of Education to see them as participants of the study. We were allowed to bring them to the group and create a group with them. We were not allowed to collect data on them. So we were trying to select them that they won't have any body behavior or things like that that could really destroy the activities within the social group. However, this is a limitation. We also think, because we did it as a study and it needs to be very controlled, so we did not share it with other school staff. So only the therapist who really provided the intervention was aware of what we're doing, of what she's doing. So we think that exposing school staff to the intervention content will increase generalization. We also think that including parents is really important. And now we're struggling. We already had a workshop for 50 preschooler teachers, and we just finished it, and we are just finishing it. And they were implementing the intervention within their preschool, but we are struggling with helping the therapist to integrate all these 3 areas of intervention. And so we are trying to help them to use or implement the holistic intervention with relation to the individual child's needs. So we are also focusing on way of evaluation, the social profile, the social interaction profile of the child, and we are trying to have the teacher to develop individual targets and aim for each child. So now we are dealing with this implementation of the holistic intervention and taking steps to personalize the intervention, because I'm just reporting a group mean, but we are now working on trying to understand who benefits from what and what characterize the children that benefited more than compared to other. And so we also try to understand further treatment responsiveness and generalization. So this is the first project, and it's about post-scolaires who are eye functioning. Now, the second one is totally on a different, you want to ask?
Can I ask a question about that same improvement? Because I understand correctly, all the studies are taking place in the beginning children, right? So what I'm concerned about with the control group is they're not really controlled, right? They're getting treatment in the form of the gun children. So why do you think it is that you're seeing either no progress or even regression in some cases for the control group?
Why do you think that they don't see progress in the control group?
Yes, but when they're in what we consider interventions, they're going to need to show it.
Yeah, but they aren't going to show that, the outcome measure we're taking in a group, we typically develop in children before and after, even for the control group. And I think that if you don't do focus intervention that will really focus on facilitating peer engagement, and social and play conversation and interaction, then the children would not improve. They are not studying it spontaneously. They really need it to be, they really need the focus intervention. And we also believe that every early intervention can benefit from adding this into the, the whole package. Because it's only 3 hours per week, and you can really see an improvement in the child pre-engagement. So it's important. It's not that it's impossible to really implement it in the educational curriculum of the child, and you really can benefit from it. So the other intervention is about school-age children who are minimally verbal, your favorite. And Connie was the first one to help us to define what does it mean minimally verbal. But we took them with less than 30 words, because when you were starting to think about it, you were talking about 30 words. So our kids had less than 30 words. They could be as retarded as 35 IQ, and we didn't have a maximum level, but we did have a lower level. And this is an intervention and another intervention project. We had 3 intervention developers and 3 intervention evaluators. And just one of the intervention developers is here, and this is Yael Strogo, and she's there. She developed the conversation intervention. What we wanted to do here, this was just accepted to the Journal of Clinical Child and Adolescent Psychology. What we wanted to do here, we didn't want to teach the kids to speak. We just wanted them, with any communication channel that they are using naturally, we wanted to help them to use it more spontaneously while interacting with their peers. Before we started with this study, we did a lot of observation on the school playground. And what we saw was so sad. They did nothing. They were sitting for hours or did some rocking, and they were not doing anything with their peers. And most of the interaction were through the adult. So what we wanted to have here is spontaneous peer interaction. And we worked here in dyads, not in group, because group is probably too demanding for them. So what we wanted to do is increase their spontaneous interaction or social engagement with their peers. Here we had 2 intervention groups and 1 control group. Also, it was a randomized control study. Also, it was within the school. We included it in 9 special education school settings, and we had 3 groups. So you can see the participant characteristics. They were pretty low. They had a huge range in puberty and in the Raven, and it's pretty typical for this population. They are very heterogeneous in terms of the cognitive capability, definitely in terms of their receptive understanding of language. In age, they were 8 to 16. So again, we had a manual as curriculum. It was within the special education setting. We just supervised the teacher. We trained the teacher to provide intervention. We came every second week. We looked at the implementation. We provided them guidance, and it lasted 4 months almost, and it was pretty intensive because we worked 4 times a week for an hour. So think about this, if in one school we had more than 1 diet, then they had to give us a teacher that will work with 2 diets, for example, 4 hours a week. So it's coming to be 8 hours a week if it's 2 diets in each school. So it was pretty intensive, and the schools that participated were really, really great and invested a lot of work in it. So children were randomly assigned to each of the groups, and we were trying to match the diets by the same communication channels that they are using. So if they're using communication board or tablet, so we let them, because we did a pilot study and we found that this was really a very important thing, that they will be able to communicate with the same communication channel. So again, we emphasize peer interaction, but in different from the other intervention, we used a lot of repetition about all the things that we were teaching them. And also, we did not give up about the learning and practicing, even though they were really, some of them were very low. So you can see here the main units for each of the intervention, the social conversation and the social collaboration. We were trying to teach them what does it mean to have friends, what does it mean to have conversation, taking turns, developing a conversation by using all these communication channels. And for the collaboration group, we did a lot of collaborative activities using dance and music for the children together, and they worked in diets. These are some examples this is from the social conversation. So if, for example, the topic was social conversation, so the definition was presented on the communication board, for example. They displayed words and relevant symbols and icons, while the teacher read aloud and explained in words and symbols. So we showed a lot of visual aids, and we explained everything that we wanted them to understand or grasp. And then students were exposed to various dyadic activities to teach them the concept of conversation and to divide conversation from other activities. So we could show them pictures, or we asked them to be involved in different kind of activities, and we just helped them to understand what is conversation and what is not conversation. And so along the intervention, the children really acquired a lot of social concepts in the topic of conversation and in the topic of collaboration. This is an example of the collaboration. We also wanted to teach them what it means to collaborate or to work together. So we could have some pictures, and then we could have some activities between the diets that they had to collaborate. In terms of our assessment measures, so we had some background measures that you see before, and also here we had some observation and questionnaires. But here we also looked at executive function, and interestingly, we also found some improvement. And this was based on one of my former studies that we teach social interaction, and we got some improvement on executive function. So what we did here, we gave the Vineland, and the Vineland was filled by the uninvolved teacher, not the one that provided the intervention. And we also had some free play situation and free conversation situation, which was not a speech conversation, it was a conversation by the communication board or tablet or whatever they were easier to use. And for our executive function, we used a brief, which is a teacher report, again by the educator who did not provide the treatment. You can see here that only violent socialization domain, only the conversation group showed nice improvement from time 1 to time 2. But on the change score, both of the interventions showed nice change score, and it was higher than the change score for the control group. On the free play, I'm showing you the active participation, which we combined all the initiation and the responses. And here you can see nice improvement in the collaboration group from time 1 to time 2. On the social engagement, the social conversation situation, we have a lot of categories, and I can't get into all of them, but I'm just showing you the ones that we saw some improvement. So we had the relevancy of the communication of the child to the adult and to the peer, and you can see nice improvement in the conversation group and in the collaboration group, and also in the relevancy to the peer, so the communication was more adequate. And then we showed improvement in eye contact to peer in the collaboration group. Both of the intervention groups showed some improvement on initiation to peer, and we also have a general quality of the interaction overall to the adult and to the peer, and we combine them. And the two intervention group again improved on this category. On the brief, interestingly and pretty consistently, the conversation group got better. Here again, lower score is better because the brief is evaluating the deficit in executive function. As this is the metacognitive major index, and as you can see, the blue line, the conversation group really lessened their deficit. On the brief metacognition subscales, there were several subscales which are really important, such as planning, organization, and monitoring, in which we saw nice improvement for the conversation group on the planning, and on the organization, and also on monitoring, on all three. But we saw some regression on the planning and a tendency for regression on the organization for the control group. So again, if we summarize all the results that we saw, another stable finding is that the control group did not improve. So I think it's really important to see that if we don't do something that will really be focusing on facilitating peer engagement, so these things will not develop spontaneously. And also the collaboration group obtained better results on the free play active participation measure, and the conversation group showed nice improvement on executive function, which is really interesting finding. So overall, both intervention groups increased social engagement. Here again, we have a lot of things to still consider, and actually we think that longer intervention time may be important. These children need a lot of repetition. So if we could have more time, but it was so intensive, and we would have told to the teacher that they have to invest more time, or the principal, so they would draw us from everywhere. So, but I think that longer time could obtain a better result. Substantial repetition seems very critical. Exposure of school staff, again, is really important, also parents. Because if we want to really obtain generalization from one setting to another, then it is important. And the outcome measure is always really a struggle when you're talking about minimally verbal children, even about the background, like how do you really measure the IQ, the level of speech, and when we just started, when we did this observation, we coded everything that the child did because we were so afraid that we won't see anything, because these are children who really don't do much. So we were pretty happy that they did a little bit more after the intervention than they did before, spontaneously with their peers. So this was nice. But still, it is, and there is a wonderful paper that you wrote, the Heritage of Clusters, about assessment measures for minimally verbal children. And also the personalization of intervention here is really very crucial, and we actually started to group the children, no matter in which group, those that improved versus those that did not improve. And we measured other things in this study, such as sensory profile, in addition to executive function, and IQ probably play an important role. In our analysis, we covariate the IQ because for one group was higher than the other, but still we think that we can find some differences as a result of the different IQs. So just taking these two projects in consideration, and also my former work, and this is a model that we just developed based on the former study that I did with high-functioning individuals, with high-functioning pre-adolescents and adolescents on the spectrum long ago. But I still think that it's really important to look about all of these components in order to really create an ecological model to increase peer interaction. So as you can see, we have the child in the center, and we have to have a manualized curriculum, and it should be comprehensive, because these children, it's not enough just to work on their behaviors. We also have to help them understand social concepts. If we want them to collaborate, they need to understand what does it mean to collaborate. If we want them to have a talk or a conversation with their peers. So we are really struggling with trying to teach them in any way that we can, through pictures, through movies, through movement, through many things that we can use in order to increase their understanding. So the curriculum should be comprehensive. It should include social cognition, which means all the knowledge, social knowledge, emotional knowledge, affective components about understanding emotion in self and in other, emotional regulation, and social interaction. Actually, all of this needs to be, at the end, the child needs to interact with his peers. So we think that the curriculum needs to include all the three components. Also because we speak about a huge spectrum with very low functioning children up to very high functioning children. None of them can work in groups, and some of them will have to start in diets. Some of them can start in groups to begin with. So we have the social curriculum needs to be flexible to enable dyadic work and group work. And what we do in our work, we always, as I told you, try to combine learning and practicing. Because just practicing, we learn that it's not helpful, and just learning also it's not helpful. So we want to, if we want them to understand something, we will let them play, and we will clarify the social concept within their play. As long as it will be more ecological model, it's better. So if the typical peers or peers at all necessarily needs to be included in this model. But also the parent are really important, because if you want to see generalization from the school setting to the house, and in our work from back in 2002, the parents really worked with us on the intervention targets together with the teacher in the school, and we really obtained a very nice generalization following this line of intervention. So I think that if we want to really think about a model of social communication growth via peers, all of these components, it's not easy, it's really hard and very demanding, but I think that all these components needs to be there. And thank you for listening, and thanks the association to
שאלות?
It's very, very impressive work as usual. I just wanted to ask you, since all the intervention really affected different domains, if you have ever thought about implementing all of them together and see if they have additive effect.
Yeah, we thought, the thing is that each intervention is lasting 6 months. So if we want to combine them all together, we have to have a year and a half. If we want to read, or increasing the the weekdays. So now we're struggling with this question, how in the clinical implementation, because we are training the teachers to be an expert on all 3 interventions, but we also teach them to evaluate each child and set priorities individually for the needs of this child. And also we are trying to help them to integrate. Like if for example, they are working on social play and trying to increase the complexity of the child's social play level, why don't they talk about peer talk, or social conversation, or activity talk? So that's what we are trying, and we have, if we want to hear, Sagit is giving a lecture on Yom Revi'i on Wednesday in Keshet conference, and she will be focusing exactly on that, on the implementation of the intervention within preschools. Because when we did it as an intervention, we could not combine. You know, we wanted to know what each intervention is really doing. But now, in terms of the clinical implementation, that's what we're struggling with, how to combine it in the right way.
Yeah, just interesting if the 3 of them together, we cause more advancement.
Yeah, that each child will get all of them at the same time. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going.
You could do it.
It's going to be really hard.
Not really.
Teach me to do hard things, but not as hard as this.
So I think the difference is that you don't need all the components. Not all the components work, and they didn't work for every kid. So what can you thin out, and what can you keep in? And
make a new one that's
individually, because not everything works for every kid, so it can be different for every kid.
Correct.
So we want to personalize the intervention. That's what we're struggling with.
Yeah. But you have to give up sometimes on things you think are important. You have to give up on them because they're really not important. That's the hardest thing for a researcher, I think, is saying, I did all this work, but it didn't really work, so I'm not going to keep that, and I'm going to do something. You know, how do you thin it out?
Yeah.
I know you. It's going to be hard to thin it out.
Giving her a hard time.
Yeah. Okay. By the finding, we saw that every intervention really increased or facilitated something.
Not all the
So
components.
if we want to compose a totally different intervention that will include
That's what you do.
some component from each of them, it should be another study. But it should be another study and another question. And I'm not that sure about this, but I'm definitely sure that first step now would be to learn about individual differences and what works for whom. And this can really guide our thinking about the creating a holistic model.
Yeah, hard to do unless you've got enough participants. To look at moderators, that's always a challenge, right?
Yeah,
You need a lot of kids.
yeah, that's what we have.
Not enough.
We have 4 groups and it was like 65.
That's not enough. Sorry.
Yeah. We will try to understand what
More questions, comments? If there's any comments for any of the speakers today or something general, this is the time to do it before I decide to summarize. So we do have most of our speakers still here, though both of the occupational therapists had to go to teach. We also do that in addition to everything else. But more questions for Yonat, for Judah, for נירית, for Connie, anyone? Yeah, Alex. She have to go get her kids.
That's there.
Good, because you're in my summary, so you have to stay. Okay. Sorry. Okay.
How the result of the preschool study differ if it wasn't with typical peers?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because now, when we gave this training to the teachers, they didn't necessarily work with typical developing children. So some of them used group for children with autism. So because we did not empirically evaluate it, so it's hard for me to say. But I still think that they can benefit from it. Because I think that activity, if you're doing an accurate moderation and level of teaching, I think that they will be benefiting from this as well. And if you go to the social skills, literature, so there are mixed and non-mixed groups, and kids are benefiting from both. thought that typical peers will, be role models somehow. Even though we did not let them, we didn't give them any, instructions. They had to be there to play with the kids, to be involved with the activities. They did not have to be moderators. However, it was important that they would demonstrate typical social behavior. But I think that you can gain the benefits also from groups with kids on the spectrum.
More questions? This is your chance. Okay, I am going to take a moment and really deal with 3 different things if I can. I think that one of the most important things that was never forgotten in anything that anyone spoke about was how heterogeneous this population is, and how we have to talk about younger and older and more verbally capable and minimally verbally capable, and what that means, and whether we're talking about clumping more people together and seeing trends, or whether we're trying to find out what works for specific people. I do think that's a really important message from today. The second really important message that I think needs to come by is the fact that there are differences between research, which we all want to have research in everything we do and know that it is viable and good, and actually every day going in and working. And we have 2 very different models. We have a model that started in the lab and is being pulled out now and seeing how it can be worked out into the situation. And we have a model that started in the field with the people doing it there and being supervised by people who are doing the research. They're 2 very different models, and there are pluses and minuses to both of them. But research is important. And unless we're able to understand what the strengths and the weaknesses are, and understand what it is that we're looking for, and how we're testing the efficacy of what we're doing, then there's always going to be more questions. It isn't a question simply of what's best for whom, though that's a pretty important question, but it's how we establish what's best for whom. And I think that's really important. And I'm going to get to my 3rd point because I think Alex really gave us a perspective, and I want to use it to finally sum up what we did here today. And what Alex said is it's not just the child, it's also his siblings, and it's his family. And there's quality of life issues that are measured differently for almost everyone. And I don't know if Alex did this purposefully or not, but thank you for combining what we were trying to do here today. You talked about family accommodation with your hourglass. Is it helpful? Is it not helpful? Do we need to ask that question? Don't we need to? Participation. I'd like him to be out in a chug, not in a chug. Well, what does participation mean? Where is the child's choice? What is going on with the choice? What that participation means for a child with autism may be different than what it means for a typically developing child, or it may be different for the family and the surroundings. I do think that it's very clear that what you said was that we need to deal with parent-mediated things, that we need the help of professionals and parents talking about what our challenges are, what our needs be for an agenda of research and clinical work. But if I really think nicely about it, what I heard was there are always going to be challenges. The question is, what do we need and how can we be informed by the kids, by their siblings, thank you, you're not, by, thank you, and by their families, as well as the things that we are learning here. So really, you touched on everything we tried to touch on, and thank you for that perspective. The only thing that I can add today is that it's a long, hard travel, not just for the children and their families, but research also has something to say. And we have to ask if they're right questions, and it's a faraway thing. And we've been working, as נירית said, for years and years to build this, and each one comes out of a question that was asked before. So the dialogue between all of you and all of us, and all of us together, will be the thing that will be most helpful for the future of making life better for people with autism and their families. And I thank you for being here with us.